Hello, fellow Africans. Welcome to Unpacking Life, a show whereby we break down life into small pieces in which we can understand more easily. My name is Sibit Lual from South Sudan. We are here in most beautiful parks in Africa. Friendship is Square. Here on the show is with me my brother Job Lazarus Okello from Uganda. Welcome to the show, my brother.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be on the show Unpacking Life. I'm so glad to join you today so that we can unpack life. I'm so glad to be on the show.
Thank you. Job, since you came to Addis Ababa on your first day, what was your first impression to see a beautiful city of Addis Ababa? What is your view like from the first day until today?
Well, Addis Ababa is a wonderful city. It is the diplomatic hub of Africa, because it houses the headquarters of the African Union. So surely everybody would want to visit Addis Ababa, everybody who loves Africa. So as a Pan-Africanist myself, I'm so glad to be in Addis Ababa, and I'm so glad to experience the diplomatic environment of the city. Yeah, from the first day I came here up to now, I'm experiencing the diplomatic experience in the city, and I can assure you it is a very beautiful experience. I went to the AU headquarters, I visited many places in the city. Yeah, the experience is wow, it's so wonderful. It's a great blessing to be in the diplomatic seat of Africa as a Pan-Africanist, where issues concerning Africa are discussed at the highest level, and policies are formed and critical decisions are made concerning the future of Africa. So I'm glad to be in such a city, and it is a big blessing to me.
Thank you, brother. It's a pleasure to be with you on the show. I'm sure we will unpack a different aspect of life or different sphere of state of affair of Africa. So we need to talk generally on politics, on leadership, on entrepreneurship, all that. So my first question will be, what do you think we should do as an African youth to be an agent of change in wherever we are, in different African countries we are in as the youth? What do you think youth should do?
If you want to cause change in your community, you begin by realizing that you have a role to play in your community and in your country, and in this case Africa, and in the world. So everybody has a role to play in determining the affairs of their communities and their countries, or in Africa and the world. Chinua Achebe wrote in his book Things Fall Apart that where are the young suckers that will grow when the old banana tree dies? The young people are the young suckers that should rise when the old banana tree dies. The problem is, we, the young people, in most cases, wait for the old banana tree to first die, and then we
start growing.
Yes, we are supposed to rise before the old banana tree dies. So that means we are supposed to identify problems in our communities and then craft solutions to those problems without waiting for the government or the old banana trees to solve them for us. Because for how long are we going to wait for those who are not even responsible enough to solve the problems that we face? So as a young people, we are supposed to rise now. How do we rise? We rise by identifying problems that we are facing, whether it is in education or in agriculture or in leadership or in culture or in economics. We identify those problems and then we craft solutions to those problems. Solutions that are realistic, that can be implemented. Solutions that we can implement in the amount of time that we have, using the resources that we have. That way we can begin to make a contribution to the affairs of our communities and our countries. A lot of young people today are just sitting while complaining. They have joined the bandwagon of lamentation. They are living as if the only book in the Bible is the book of Lamentations. So I'm here to say there's another book, the book of Revelations, which we are supposed to read as a young people. We are supposed to read and get the revelations and use the revelations to craft solutions to the problems that we have in our communities, in our countries, and in Africa. Wow. That way we shall cause change. Change will not come in the words of Barack Obama. Change will not come some other time. We are the change we've been waiting for. So we the young people must lead the revolution to cause change in Africa. Nobody will come from any place and cause change for us in Africa. We are the ones to rise now and cause change. The question is to the young people out there, what change are you causing in your community right now? What problems are you solving now? So the young people must be at the forefront of causing change in Africa.
Wow.
That way we can build Africa that we want. Otherwise, we are going nowhere.
Thank you, my brother. I will still ask you on the youth side, like as you have mentioned that we as the youth are the change that we need, okay, or we should be the agent of change. What can you tell the youth who are still sleeping? Because you know now that there are a lot of youth who have graduated from school, they have done their degrees, even their masters, and still they are doing nothing. What can you tell them so that they can get an energy for them to do something? What can you tell those youth who are just sleeping, waiting for government to do something for them? What can you tell them for them to be energized?
One of the most important things that we need to understand as a young people is the reason why we go to school. A lot of people go to school with the wrong belief that after school they will get jobs. Just because they've gone to school, they think they should get jobs just because they don't have papers. Unfortunately, the world does not work like that. The world is controlled by those who have skills, which they apply and they commercialize. So here's the point. We the young people need to learn skills beyond the papers that we have. Skills that we can commercialize. Skills that we can apply so that we can make money from the skills. Because skills are applied to solve problems. So if there's somebody who needs a suit, his problem is a suit. He needs a suit. So it will need somebody who has the skills of sewing a suit to solve that problem.
A fashion designer,
somebody, or a tailor.
So
so the skills that we have and we execute and we apply, those are the skills that will give us money beyond the papers that we have. The world in which people would be absorbed into jobs immediately from school, that world is long gone. Those days are gone. These are not those days. We are living in days in which you create your own jobs. So the people at school, the people who have left school, the people who have papers now, who are sitting on their papers, the reason why we go to school is not to get jobs. The primary purpose of education is enlightenment. When you are enlightened, your mind is open. You can now create ideas. You can come up with ideas that you can execute, and from the ideas you can make money. You can employ yourself and you can employ a lot of people. So for example, those who studied agriculture and they have land, you have gone to school, you have studied agriculture, you have land, and you are still lacking job. That's the problem. You see? That's the problem. Because if you have land, you have learned the skills. What stops you from applying the skills? Why can't you go and open up that land and start rearing animals and start farming? Because if you have the skills, all you need is the capital. Somebody may say, well, I lack the capital, the sort of capital. Well, you lack the sort of capital. That's why maybe I'm sitting on my papers. That is an excuse. Because there is somebody who is looking for that land. Only that land. They don't even have the capital, but they just need the land. And you have the land. I have moved across Africa and I see a lot of young people in the cities doing nothing, lacking even what to eat, lacking where to sleep. But those young people have less chunks of land in the villages. When I meet them and ask them, what are you doing in the city here when you have land in the villages? What are you doing here? So why can't you go back and open that land? So if we want to fight unemployment among the young people, we need to start by asking, what do we already have? If I already have land, the question then is, what can I do with this land so that I can employ myself? What skills do I have? Or what skills do I need to learn that I can apply to make use of what I already have so that I get what I lack? Because the jobs you are looking for may not exist. We may not get it very soon.
Exactly.
But we can start with what we have and we can create something that can keep us busy. As we look for what we went to school and studied for, we can create something even outside what we studied. So I think that way we can be more useful as a young people and we can cause change in our communities and in our countries. So let us take stock of what we have and make use of what we have. We shouldn't focus so much on what we lack that we don't see what we already have. We should instead focus on what we have and start making use of what we have. That way, we can be able to get what we lack while we keep busy instead of being idle. I think that way we can solve the problems of idleness among the young people.
Thank you so much for the job, for more for elaboration more on how youth should do something about their life or about their communities. Now, before we go on to the uneducated African or illiterate African youth who are still there in the villages, so I would ask, like, what advice should we give for those who are in the villages who have not gone to the school? How can we empower them so that they can feel that they can do something? Because now, when you are not educated in this information world, you think that you are left behind. So what information can you give to those people who are herding cattle, those who are holding guns? What can you tell them to motivate them or to make them do something for themselves, for their community, and for country at large? What kind of message can you give to those people because they think they are hopeless?
One of the biggest mistakes we can make in life is to equate education to success. If you look through the pages of history, you find some of the richest people the world has ever known did not go to formal schools, never attended any formal school, most of them. Now, the people in the villages, let's ask them this question. Those who did not go to school, you are looking after cattle, you are farming, you are holding guns and trying to maybe get somebody's home. What is your state of mind as you are looking after cattle? What kind of mindset do you have? How do you think about yourself? Do you look at yourself as a failure just because you didn't go to school? Or you think you can create something out of your situation and you can become something? I have met a lot of people who never went to school. But the issue is, how are they thinking? What is the quality of their minds? What are their thoughts? Because you can think your way to wealth. Read that book, Think and Grow Rich, by Napoleon Hill. So the people who are herding cattle in the villages, the fact that you never went to school is not a guarantee that you are a failure. Failure does not come from not going to school. There are many people who went to school and they have papers, but they are serious failures in a society. They have failed. Haven't you met professors who are failures?
Of course I do.
There are many. So
yes. Many of them.
They have gone to school. They are professors, but they are failures. They succeeded at school and they excelled in their careers.
Exactly.
But outside their careers, they are failures. There are many even professors who lack families. They are broken homes. So the young people who are in the villages, this is what they need to do. Watch how you think, mind how you think. The quality of your thoughts will determine the quality of your life. If you can think right and you can come up with ideas that you can execute, you can become a very successful person, even if you didn't go to school. School is good. If you get a chance to go to school and learn. But that is not a guarantee that you will be successful. The days of walking out of school into a job are long gone. Those days are gone. These days you walk out of school into an open market where you start selling yourself now, looking for what to do. So everybody has to create something, whether you went to school or not, whether you're educated or not, you have to create something. The world is being controlled by people who are creative and innovative. So while you are herding cattle in the village, what are you innovating? That's a question. While you are busy guarding somebody's home, what are you innovating? What are you creating with your mind? Because you have the power to create the world you want with your mind. Problem is, a lot of young people misuse their minds. Nobody is a failure just because they didn't go to school. Everybody can succeed if they follow rules. You know, success can be predicted. You can tell if somebody's going to fail or somebody's going to succeed. Why? Because success is based on rules. Success is not a pursuit. It's a result of some laws. You just follow the laws of success. It doesn't matter whether you are educated or you are not educated, or you are a king or you are a noble or you are a local person. As long as you follow the rules, you will be able to succeed. So what are those rules that you need to follow to succeed? One of them is discipline. Are we disciplined as we herd the cattle in the villages? Are we disciplined as we go to our gardens and farm? Are we disciplined? Are we focused? Are we determined? Are we hardworking? Are we thinking? Are we creating? Are we innovating? If we follow those principles, we will surely make it in life. It doesn't matter where you come from. Anybody can succeed from anywhere, as long as they follow the rules of success.
Wow.
So the people in the villages, whether you have gone to school or not, worry not. Think, create, and innovate. You can make it.
Thank you so much for breaking it down into small pieces that can make it more easy for people to understand. And the next question will be about the Agenda 2063. This is, to me, it's a bit challenging. Like when I try to ask myself, like, why do African head of states, in the first place, try to fit the agenda very far like that into 2063? How many years are, like what is so hard for us African, or for African leaders to achieve the goal of Africa we want? Like when we put it in 5 years term or 10 years, like why do we make it that long? So what do you think? Like, do you think that it will really works? So do you think that it will really come to realization, or you think that it is something that they are just preaching on?
Well, when I read the Agenda 2063, which was formulated in 2013 by the African Union, I see very beautiful aspirations in that document, especially when you check the 10-year implementation plan. The Agenda 2063 was formulated because the African Union was looking at the next 50 years. You will remember that the Organization of African Unity was formed in 1963. So between 1963 to 2013 was 50 years. So the African Union Commission with African heads of state and government sat down in 2013 and said, we have lost the past 50 years. We can't afford to lose the next 50 years. So that's why they formulated the Agenda 2063. From 2013 to 2063, those are 50 years. So now they're looking at where Africa is going to be in the next 50 years. That was from 2013.
Okay.
So they came up with the beautiful Agenda 2063, which is the blueprint of the Africa that we want. The Africa we are supposed to have by 2063. If you read that document, you see very beautiful aspirations, a very beautiful Africa, a very peaceful Africa, a united Africa, an Africa where goods are free to move, people can move freely, an Africa where there is one passport, an Africa where Africans don't need visas to travel across Africa. A very beautiful Africa. On paper, the agenda is beautiful. The problem is, we're in 2025. The agenda was formulated in 2013. So those are 12 years now. If you look at what is in place now, compared to what is in the paper, what should have been achieved by now, totally different things. For example, in that agenda, aspiration number 4 talks about the guns being silent in Africa by 2020. By 2020, the guns were supposed to be silent in Africa. So this is 2025.
The guns are even more louder.
As we are talking now, the guns are louder now than they were in 2013. Between 2013 and 2025. So many coups have taken place in Africa. Now, some of those African heads of state and government were there in 2013 to formulate this agenda.
Most of them
were there in office in 2013. Now, if you look at what is happening now, you can be sure that if we continue with the status quo, the agenda will never be achieved. When we speak like this, somebody may think we are pessimists. We are very hopeless people. No, we are not. We are realistic. The agenda is so beautiful, and if we could achieve that agenda, Africa would be the richest continent in terms of both natural resources and money and people. The problem is we are not true to what we have on paper. So this is our message to African presidents. Let us stay true to what we have on paper. Let us stay true to the agenda that we have on paper. If you're talking about the guns being silent in Africa by 2020, do we have the necessary infrastructures in place to make sure the guns are silent? How are we dealing with the rebels in different parts of Africa? How are we dealing with the different policies we have in different countries to solve the conflicts that we have? If we cannot handle those rebels, then we cannot talk about the guns being silent. How are we dealing with our own people in Africa, especially during elections? We have seen African countries that turn against their own people, that mistreat their own people during elections. So those are the presidents who talked about the gaps being silent. That is hypocrisy. If we are talking about trade, that we want goods to move freely across Africa, do we have the infrastructures in place? Do we have a railway line that can run from Cairo up to Cape Town? Do we have that? We don't. So what are we talking about? So this agenda, as I see it, to be very honest, if we continue the way we are doing things now in Africa, the agenda will never be achieved. And in 2063, African Heads of State and Government will gather again in Addis Ababa here to probably formulate another agenda or revise this agenda. Because to achieve this agenda, we need the leadership. The African Union, the way it is now, is not providing the leadership we want for achieving the agenda. Because the African Union right now is in the ICU. It's in the ICU, being supported by machines to breathe. It needs resuscitation. In fact, the African Union is in a coma. So if someone is in a coma, they cannot help, they cannot do anything. So the African Union now, as we have it now, in this current state, cannot provide the leadership that we want for building the Africa that we want. So we need leadership in order for this agenda to be achieved. Without that, we are going nowhere.
Thank you, my brother. I will not elaborate more on this because you have talked, you have bring a lot of examples that can make it work, that can make it, that cannot make it work. Okay, so again, my question will come from the economics. Okay, why are we so dependent on foreign aid as governments in Africa? You now see that when President Trump get into power, he cut the loans, you know, and most countries are now suffering, even to pay for their government workers for the salary. They are suffering. So, what can we do as an African to stand on our two feet without being dependent on the US aid or any other aid from different part of the continent? What should we do as an Africans so that we make sure we have everything we need in our own countries, in our own continent?
If you look at Africa, Africa is the richest continent in the world in terms of natural resources. There is nothing that we lack in Africa in terms of natural resources. Talk of gold, we have it in abundance. Talk of silver, we have it in abundance. Talk of coltan, we have it in abundance. We have all kinds of resources in Africa here. We have the most fertile land in the whole world. But Africans are still dying of hunger. As we speak now, people are dying of hunger. Now, as we are speaking now, Africans are dying of hunger. Africans are dying of hunger now. This is crazy. So what is the problem? If we have the resources that we need, then what's the problem? The problem is leadership. Because if we lack leadership, then we can never be self-reliant. If President Donald Trump coughs in the White House, the entire African continent goes into coma. Recently, when Trump took over office and he cut off aid, we saw how many African countries are crying up to now. How many workers have been laid off in Africa? It's crazy. That means we are not in charge of our own affairs because we don't have the leadership we desire for the continent. So how can the US president cut off aid to Africa through USAID and then we lay off so many people across Africa? That's crazy. So we are never going to become self-reliant as long as we are not in charge of our own affairs. We have seen how many African governments are crying now, begging America, begging the president to change his mind. How can that be? And we are talking about building the Africa that we want. That is not Africa that we want. The Africa we want is a self-reliant Africa. An Africa that's in charge of her resources. An Africa that controls her affairs. That is not Africa that we have now. So what we need to do, we need leadership, the right leadership. The leadership that will make us in charge of our resources. As long as we don't take charge of our resources in Africa, we shall forever remain dependent on foreign aid. Because we need to use the resources that we have to build the Africa that we want. The problem is we are not in charge of our resources now. So China can come and loot the resources, America can come and loot the resources, Europe can come and loot the resources. That's a problem. So we are losing the resources. We are selling coffee in raw form. We are selling cocoa in raw form. Now the coffee we sell in raw form is processed outside Africa and sold back to Africa very highly. So in every transaction we are doing, we are losing. The other day at the EU headquarters, African presidents were talking about reforming the global financial system. Talking about reforming the IMF, reforming the World Bank, and so that they can be more useful to Africa. Quick questions. Here, in Ethiopia here, are people free to use their money here? Here, is money free to move? No. I suffered so much to collect very little money that was sent to me here, so that we can receive money here, but we cannot send money in Ethiopia National Bank, the commercial bank of Ethiopia. Very little money, less than $1,000. But now I wasted 2 days struggling to collect that money. And to get foreign currency here, it's very difficult. So if people cannot move their money, how do you expect to boost trade and investment in Africa? If money cannot move, because money fuels the economy. So if money is not moving in Africa freely, you put your money in a bank, but you can't easily get it out. How do you expect trade to grow? Impossible. Now, that is not the case in Europe and America, in Asia. Money is free to move. That's why they can move, they can come freely here and do investments and trade. Now, African countries need to reform their own financial system first before they talk about reforming the global financial system. Because in our respective countries, is money free to move? Are people free to move their money? Can people easily do investments in other countries within Africa here? Can we do that? If we cannot do that, how do we have the audacity to talk about reforming the global financial systems? Of course, the IMF and the World Bank are not really serving the interests of Africa. Even the African Development Bank, the major shareholders are not Africa. America and Europe and China are the major shareholders in African Development Bank. African Development Bank. African Development Bank, not American Development Bank. African Development Bank. The major shareholders are America, Europe and China. So what are we doing as Africans? What do we own? So in order for us to take charge of our affairs and become self-reliant, we need, number one, the right leadership that will make us in charge of our resources. We need to stop trading raw products in the world market. The world will never respect us as long as we keep selling raw products. We need to process the resources that we have. Only then can we trade with the world on equal terms. Otherwise, if I'm selling raw materials and I want to buy the final products again from you highly, I'm giving you money, I'm making you richer while I'm getting poorer. So we can change our affairs and become self-reliant if we take charge of our resources in Africa. Otherwise, we shall forever remain slaves, economic slaves, political slaves, financial slaves, cultural slaves, if we cannot take charge of our resources here in Africa. Because you see, the goal we have that they need, they lack it, we have it here. So that means our power relies on how we use what we have. So the issue is we need to industrialize. We don't need aid, we need trade. We don't really need aid. Africa does not need foreign aid. Africa needs trade. The problem is we talk about goods moving freely in Africa, removing tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers, but is that the case on the ground? No. You cannot easily move your goods even from Ethiopia here to South Sudan, which is a neighboring country here. You cannot do that. Because the restrictions.
It is more easily for you to trade with China than you being trade with
African country
with your neighbor country.
That's the problem. So how are we going to become self-reliant if we cannot move goods from one country to another in Africa here? So there's a lot of hypocrisy going on in Africa that we need to change, and that needs leadership. Without leadership, we shall never fix Africa. Without leadership, we shall never become self-reliant. Without leadership, we shall never be in charge of our affairs, and forever we shall remain dependent on foreign countries, and they'll continue exploiting us, taking our resources, and we shall never develop as a country. Leadership is the solution to all the problems.
Thank you so much. And before we move on, based on what you have said, the biggest problem is the leadership and the kind of system that are running our government. What should we do, or what do you think we can do for Africans to change the systems and the leadership? Like, what kind of ways we can use to change our system and leadership so that we can be like other countries that are running smoothly?
One of the biggest problems we have in Africa is ignorance. It is eating Africans alive. It is clear when it comes to electing our leaders, our so-called leaders. You will not be surprised to see when people are campaigning, they give people a bar of salt or a packet of salt. And then people vote because somebody has given them a packet of salt. And then you vote somebody who is going to make you suffer for the next 5 years.
Just for a salt.
How can you be that stupid to vote someone who has given you a packet of salt, and that somebody is going to make you suffer for the next 5 years? You will cry for the next 5 years because of a packet of salt. How can a packet of salt be worth your vote? Because your vote is your power. We are putting the wrong people into offices. We are trying to put square pegs in round holes. Square pegs cannot fit in round holes. If we are putting politicians in offices that demand leadership, and the politician cannot provide the leadership we need, then it is like we are trying to put round pegs in square holes. And if the round pegs fail to fit in the square holes, we start complaining. How can we be that foolish? So we need to educate our people on leadership and politics, so that they should know the difference between a leader and a politician, so that when it comes to election, they elect those who will give them the leadership that they need, instead of electing the politicians. Because leaders are there to serve the people, politicians are there to serve their own interests. We should put square pegs in square holes and round pegs in round holes. We should not put square pegs in round holes and expect them to fit. And if they don't fit, we start complaining. No, we are responsible for our own problems as a people, because we have the power to cast the votes. Now, to those who are already in offices, we need this understanding that offices that demand leadership must give the leadership that the people want. It becomes a problem now when somebody spends a lot of money to campaign and get into an office. He will surely want to get back his money. So in the process of getting back his money, the people will suffer. The people will lack perfect representation. They will lack basic services. They will lack what they need. Just because somebody said recovering his money. How long is it going to take to recover that money? 5 years become very small for him to get back that money. So that means automatically you must know you're going to suffer for the next 5 years. Because he is going to spend the 5 years recovering his money and preparing for the next elections. So we need to change this as the citizens. We have the power. We can change this. If we don't fix the leadership problems in Africa, we shall never fix our problems. Never. Never, 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 never. So our people have the power to put in place the right people who should lead them. The problem becomes when elections are rigged. This is where the problem is now. So in that case, we need competent institutions that can manage elections, that can deal with the corrupt people. We need strong institutions. When Obama came to Africa and spoke to the African Union,
2015,
he said Africa does not need strong men, Africa needs strong institutions. I don't agree with him, because Africa needs strong men first before strong institutions. Because strong institutions are built by strong men. Weak men cannot build strong institutions. America has strong institutions because of strong men who build institutions. America has a strong foundation, a strong system, because the system and the foundation were built by strong men like Thomas Jefferson. So we need strong men and strong women in Africa, people of integrity, people who are leaders. Those are the people who will build a strong institution that will fight issues like corruption, issues like bribery, embezzlement. Those are the people who can create such a strong system. So we need strong men and women who can provide the leadership that we need for building our countries. Otherwise, we shall forever remain slaves in our own countries, in Africa.
Now we need to go to the sector of agriculture. So we know that we have huge arable land. We have water. So what can we use? How can we use them to benefit? Because now we are benefiting from, we are benefiting from US, You know, our people are suffering in refugee camp, in IDP camps. Like, what can you tell these people to go and work on this land? Like, how can they use it?
You know, when I move across Africa, I am shocked by what I see Africans are eating. Africans are consuming chicken from Brazil.
From Brazil?
From Brazil. You go to supermarkets, even here in Addis Ababa. An African will walk into a supermarket and probably say, I want chicken from Brazil. We are consuming things that we can produce here. You go to restaurants, you get toothpicks that are made in China.
Not enough.
Toothpicks made in China. The butter we are consuming here, made in Switzerland. So what are we making here that we are consuming here? If we are importing rice from Pakistan, the rice we are eating a lot in Africa here, from Pakistan, from India, from China, and yet we have the most fertile land in the world. What is the problem? What is wrong with our minds? So we need to start growing what we should consume and consuming what we grow in Africa here. Because now, how are we going to become self-reliant if we continue importing chicken from Brazil, rice from Pakistan, beans? We are importing beans from outside.
From Brazil?
Beans from Brazil, beans from China. If you cannot feed yourself, if you can never feed yourself, then the person who feeds you will control even how you should eat, will control what to eat. How sure are we that the goods coming from outside are prepared in our best interest? How sure are we that those goods are good for us? How can we trust chicken packed in Brazil? And on the boxes it is indicated, made for Africa.
Made for Africa.
That means not to be sold in America or in Europe or in China. It is made for Africa. I saw the boxes of the chicken from Brazil made for Africa.
Made for Africa.
What is inside there that makes you not sell it in America or in Europe and even in Brazil? So there should be something there that we need to find out. So our bureaus of statistics and of standards in Africa need to wake up and investigate these goods coming from outside. Because we are eating our own death in Africa. We are eating our own death. Our forefathers ate organic substances. They ate organic foods and they lived long. Today Africans are dying younger. You go to cancer hospitals, you'll be shocked by the number of people suffering from cancer. Where are we getting this cancer from? We are eating this cancer. So Africans mind what to eat. Mind what to eat, mind what to eat, mind what to drink. Mind what to drink, mind what to drink. Farm your own food, grow your own food. You have the land. You have the land. Stop importing what you can produce here in Africa. Stop importing your death. Stop importing what is destroying you, fellow Africans. We can grow our own food here. We can be self-reliant in Africa.
Thank you.
We can do that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, my brother Joe, for being with us in the show here. It's a pleasure to have you breaking down the issues that are facing our continent, Africa.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. And I'm so grateful for the good work you're doing. Sending the message to build Africa that we want. So continue with the great work you're doing. I believe we can continue teaching our people, sustaining them and opening up their minds so that they can make the contributions. So this show is one of the ways of opening the minds of Africans, unpacking the issues happening in Africa so that our people can make their contribution. Thank you so much.
To you, our viewers, thank you so much for your attention to this video. We will come back with another episode very soon. So stay tuned. So we love you. And once more, I would like to tell you that stay informed. Because if you are not informed, you will be deformed.
Very powerful. Stay informed.
Stay informed.
Otherwise, you will be deformed.